I had no idea you'd been hoarding like that. Besides, we're a married couple. There's no reason I shouldn't use our shared assets. That's right. It's worse to hide it. While looking down on me, my husband and mother-in-law kept talking as they pleased. I was so disgusted with them, I decided to confront them with reality. Sigh. By the way, have you checked the name of the passbook? Huh? My name is Lillian, and I'm turning 42 this year. I've been married for 17 years, and before that, I worked at a company. After getting married, I quit my job and started working part-time at a local supermarket. I met my husband, Easton, at work, and at the time, I thought he was an ordinary and kind man. That changed about 6 months after we got married. One day, while preparing dinner, my mother-in-law suddenly visited our house without any notice. My husband hadn't come home from work yet, and I thought there might be some urgent matter, so I let her in. As soon as she saw the living room, she let out a big sigh. Lillian, you've been idly watching TV until this hour. My son Easton is still working hard, sweating at his job. Don't you feel sorry? Yes? I did have the TV on, but until a moment ago, I'd been preparing dinner in the kitchen. You might say I'm lazing around, but I finished my housework by morning, and I've just returned from shopping after my part-time job. Feeling irritated inside, but thinking I've done my part, I replied, I'm sorry, to my mother-in-law. She ostentatiously snorted, went into the kitchen, and started to find fault with dinner too. Oh dear, is this all we have for dinner today? Poor Easton, working so hard. I've planned for curry and salad today. The salad is in the fridge. How could you let Easton eat such a half-baked meal? I wonder what you've learned at home. Insulted not just about me, but also about my parents, I finally lost it and asked a bit harshly, Didn't you need something? Then my mother-in-law opened her eyes wide. Oh my, don't get so mad just because I looked at the dinner. She pouted her lips conspicuously and sat heavily on the sofa to watch TV. What do you need? It's not what do you need. Don't you think you should offer something to your mother-in-law who has kindly visited? Excuse me? You're such an inconsiderate person, not even serving tea. Poor Easton. She kept repeating, poor Easton. So I served her tea. But she complained about everything, including the taste of the tea, saying it was cheap. Back then, I was young and was avoiding arguing with my husband's mother, wondering if I should be considerate to her. However, taking advantage of the fact that neither my husband nor I said anything, my mother-in-law began to frequently visit our home, constantly complaining that I wasn't cleaning properly, that I was always lazy, and that I lacked discipline. After being constantly criticized at every turn, I was truly at my wit's end and decided to consult my husband about his mother. Hey, could you ask your mom to reduce the number of times she comes to our house? Why? Is it that much of a bother when mom comes over? You've seen it, haven't you? No matter how much I work on the house or cooking, your mom keeps complaining about me. Well, that's because mom wants you, Lillian, to work harder so she gets tough. I'm doing my best, but if she comes over without notice, I can't even prepare dinner properly. If you're bothered, say it yourself. But don't forget that mom cares about us too. Throughout, my husband was like this. He never really worried about what I was saying. No matter how much effort I put into cleaning the house or studying cooking, my mother-in-law would nitpick and never praised me. Once the vegetables my mother-in-law brought were clearly close to their expiration date, so I used them for dinner. Then, my mother-in-law sighed conspicuously to serve such withered vegetables to her husband and his mother. I finally realized that she just wanted to bully her daughter-in-law. Being persistently criticized, I consulted my father-in-law. When I told him that it was hard to prepare meals for the mother-in-law and that it was a problem to be visited many times without notice, he seemed not to know she was coming to our house and apologized to me politely. I thought she was going out to dinner with friends. I didn't think she was bothering you, Lillian. I'm sorry. No, it's not something for you to apologize for. She's often out and about, so I've been giving her money for meals. But she hasn't been taking it, has she? Unfortunately, no. I'm really sorry. My father-in-law apologized to me again and again throughout our conversation. He promised to speak sternly to my mother-in-law, and I didn't say anything more about her attitude, thinking that was enough. I thought I could finally relax, but then I received a phone call filled with scoldings from my mother-in-law. Hello? You're really uncouth, tattling to my husband like that? What? I've been going out of my way to check on you, and I didn't expect you to repay my kindness with such ingratitude. That's not true. I'm not repaying kindness with ingratitude. You should be the one apologizing. It's audacious to claim you're inconvenienced. I'm educating you in areas where your upbringing was lacking. You should be grateful. I understand what you're saying, but it is inconvenient when you show up without notice. Should a mother need to make an appointment to visit her own son's house? My parents wouldn't do that. How brazen you are. As a daughter-in-law, you should adapt to the rules of your husband's family. No matter what I said, she got increasingly heated and eventually started yelling so loud that I couldn't understand her. And then she hung up. I suspected she called during my father-in-law's absence, so I hesitated to consult him again, as it seemed like it would only lead to more of the same. Although the frequency diminished slightly, my mother-in-law did not stop visiting our home. My husband was in good spirits as he complained about work to my mother-in-law and received her sympathy, so it didn't look like he'd be persuading her to stop visiting anytime soon. Seeing his attitude, my mother-in-law became even more cheerful, and they both began to blame me. Lillian, you don't show enough respect to Mom. That's right, Easton, tell her more. I'm only getting a small allowance, even though I'm the one earning the money. That's terrible. What a devil of a wife you have. They continued to eat the meals I prepared while complaining about them, and they chatted and laughed in the living room I had cleaned. When I was washing the dishes, my husband would say, "At least prepare the bath," expecting me to get everything ready from the bath towels to his pajamas. My mother-in-law didn't reprimand him for it, but instead sided with him, saying, "Poor thing, having such an inconsiderate wife." I consulted with my father-in-law again and received yet another profuse apology. But I was exhausted with the fact that my mother-in-law's actions remained unchanged. Those were the days that kept on going. One day, I noticed that a necklace handed down to me by my own mother was missing. When I asked my husband, he claimed he didn't know, and coldly dismissed me with, "You probably lost it due to your own carelessness." It was supposed to be in my drawer. The truth came out when my mother-in-law visited our home again during dinner time. Mother-in-law, that necklace, oh dear, it's quite disgraceful to desire something someone else is wearing. What my mother-in-law had around her neck was undoubtedly the necklace I lost. It had a unique, unusual design with a peculiar ornament, and there was no way I could mistake it. And there she was, wearing it right in front of me. Please give it back. How awful. Are you accusing me of stealing from you? It's not only desiring someone else's belongings, but also calling them a criminal that reveals your upbringing. With a triumphant smile, my mother-in-law provoked me until I couldn't hold back and reached for her necklace. Then, my mother-in-law purposefully screamed, and just then my husband, who had returned home earlier than usual, opened the front door. Seeing me, he pushed me hard. I crashed into the wall and crouched down on the spot. Looking down at me, my husband, while holding my mother-in-law's shoulder, started accusing me. Just like Mom said, "You've been bullying her while I'm not here, haven't you?" "That's right, Easton. Lillian is really terrible. I just wanted to get along." "No, listen. The necklace your mother is wearing is the one I said I lost. I don't want to hear any excuses. Mom, let's eat out tonight. You better reflect on your actions." Such a sweet boy. Easton really is a good son. With that, my husband left with my mother-in-law. At that moment, the shock of not being able to get my necklace back, along with the anger towards my husband for siding with my mother-in-law without even listening to me, made my pent-up frustrations explode, and I decided to take revenge. That same day, I had yet another talk with my father-in-law. While apologizing to me, my father-in-law listened attentively to my story. And I found out that he was also fed up with my mother-in-law's outrageous behavior. Hearing this, I decided to set up a plan. And then again, when my mother-in-law came to her house without learning her lesson, as usual, she was flaunting the necklace, enjoying my reaction. I deliberately told her, "I forgot to buy something. Could you look after the house for a bit?" Normally, she would have retorted with something like, "How dare you ask me to do something?" But this time, she smiled sweetly and said, "Of course. Why don't you take your time? You're always busy with housework." "Thank you. I'll be back in about 30 minutes. With that, I left my mother-in-law at home and went out. Alone in the supermarket parking lot, I held my pounding heart, as if testing the malice of those close to me. If I could get definitive evidence, I could take my revenge. But part of me also hoped that my mother-in-law and husband would reflect on their actions and change. Then, exactly 30 minutes later, I returned home. What I saw when I returned with shopping bags was my mother-in-law in the living room, messily eating dinner with my husband. "Oh, you were late, so we started without you. Today's dinner was more plain than usual. Don't you feel sorry for Mom?" But I asked mother-in-law to watch the house because I forgot to buy something. "No more excuses. Be careful next time." Seeing my husband act even more arrogant because of my mother-in-law's presence, I couldn't help but sigh. Looking at the pot, with only bits of vegetables left, I felt more disgusted than angry at my husband, who didn't even think to leave some food for me. I guess there's no future where these two will reflect on their actions. After cleaning up dinner, I checked what happened to the trap after my mother-in-law left. As expected, it seemed like the trap had been set off. Seeing it, my husband's smirk, mocking me, looked uglier than ever. His triumphant smile was just like my mother-in-law showing off the necklace, and I couldn't help but laugh. And the day of revenge came sooner than I thought. On my husband's day off, he and my mother-in-law called me to the living room. Seeing the two of them in high spirits, I sat across from them, pretending to know nothing. "Hey, why didn't you tell us?" "What are you talking about?" "About the bank book. If you had that much money, you could have told us. Now you can show filial pity to Mom, too." "I don't understand what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb. We're talking about your bank book." "Oh," I managed to say. Without showing any signs of panic, I must have been a bit suspicious, but the two of them happily started laying out the estimate papers for a single-family house on the table. "Mom and Dad, you and me, we bought a new two-family house." "Bought? What do you mean?" "You're slow to catch on, aren't you? We're saying we made a contract with the money from your bank book. Buying it all at once means no interest and it's smoother, right?" "Hold on. Why are you moving forward with this without me?" "Lillian, you really do hate me, don't you? That's why you're saying you don't want to live together." "Hey, cut it out. You're being rude to Mom." "Who's being rude? It's far more disrespectful for you two to use my money without my permission." "You're the ones, huh? People with bad upbringing really have bad mouths." I struggled to suppress a laugh at the two of them, who were saying whatever they wanted. There was a part of me that was amazed at how terrible I had become, but my resolve to take revenge never wavered, because it was these two who had made me this way. We found a perfect newly built property for sale, so we've already signed the contract. No matter what you say, it's too late now. Anyway, I didn't know you were saving up that much. Besides, we're married, so there's no reason for you to complain about using our shared property. That's right, it's worse to hide it. By the way, did you check the name on the bank book? Huh? The two of them froze at my words. Seeing that, I finally couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. The two of them peered at the name on the bank book and then looked at me with faces drained of blood. "What the hell is this? It's exactly what you're seeing. Why is it our person's name?" "I never said it was my bank book." "So what does that mean? You stole Dad's bank book?" "You thief." "Who's the thief? You went out of your way to pry open a locked drawer and took it." "But you were hiding it so carefully." "Oh, so it's okay to steal things that your daughter-in-law treasures? I guess that's how you were raised, mother-in-law. Don't talk back to Mom. You should watch your mouth. Do you know why father-in-law gave this to me?" Why, you say? I heard from father-in-law about the reason mother-in-law has been spending so much money lately. You two took a vacation while taking time off from work, didn't you? Well, it seems you told the company whatever you wanted as the reason for taking time off, like I had a fever or went back to my parents' home. I got a call from the department head, and he was speechless when I told him the truth. Huh? Finally realizing their predicament, the two exchanged troubled glances. But I had no intention of forgiving them over something like this. While we were silent, the doorbell conveniently rang. When I went to the entrance and brought the visitor into the living room, the two let out a small scream. When my mother-in-law came to our house, I contacted my father-in-law. "Why are you here? I've told you countless times not to cause trouble for Lillian. But there are no buts. When will you two start behaving properly? Dad, she had your bank book, and so what are you calling her she for? I didn't raise you to be so rude. You're old enough to know better. It's embarrassing to hear you calling Mom, all the time. If you can't treasure your wife, what's the point of calling her she? If you say that, she has treasured me too. Are you saying you're not being treasured? I've been working so as not to cause you trouble, and I thought I'd managed to save a decent amount of money. I've tried my best to let you do what you want without any financial constraints. And now what? You want me to overlook your mistreatment of your wife? Well, throughout this exchange, whenever they tried to make an excuse, my father-in-law would fire back tenfold until they were rendered speechless. He delivered the final blow to the two, who were shrinking and hanging their heads about the bank book. By the way, about the bank book I left with Lillian. I told her to take it as a nuisance fee, because I felt bad about how much trouble you two have been causing, no matter how much I warn you. No way. And you two, after stealing that money, even bought a house. What more should I do for you? The two couldn't say anything, and mother-in-law ended up being taken home by my father-in-law. Before that, I pointed at her neck and was able to recover the necklace safely. Seeing that, my husband guessed what had happened and forced his mother to bow her head. In the now quiet living room, I handed the divorce papers to my husband, who was completely deflated. Why? What do you mean, why? After all this, you still think we can stay married? But you're only mad at Mom. Of course I'm disgusted with you too. No, I won't divorce. Then shall we go to court? We'd have to expose everything you've done to the court. And your company, though. Huh? Oh yes, we've got it all on camera. You two breaking open the lock and taking the bank book. Clearly shows you two desperately breaking the lock. No, you're lying. It's amazing how you can call others thieves after doing such a thing. I wonder what kind of upbringing you had. Why? All of that will be made public, and you'll probably have to cover the $300K you used of your father-in-law's money, my compensation, and the court fees. What are you going to do? Why can you say such cruel things? You still don't get it. Should we have your father lecture you again? I accepted the divorce papers from my dejected husband and finally became a free woman. As for the $300K I received from my father-in-law, I decided to accept it again as a nuisance and consolation fee for my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law. The two of them, under my father-in-law's supervision, had to work their fingers to the bone to repay him a total of 60 million yen. Once, I received an email from my ex-husband to a free email address seeming to ask for a reconciliation, but I ignored and deleted it. Thanks to being free from my source of stress, my health has improved, and I'm spending my time freely with the money I received from my father-in-law.